Hey everybody, and welcome to Ape Nation, your number one source for all things Planet of the Apes on YouTube. My name is Josh, and as many of you saw recently, I have officially hit 15,000 subscribers here on YouTube. First, I just wanted to once again say thank you to everybody who is subscribed and watches my videos, and especially to those of you who share my videos and help get the word out so that other Planet of the Apes fans see them too. I could not do this without all of your help, and I would not be continuing to hit these milestones if it weren't for all of you. So seriously, thank you so much for your support. And as many of you also saw, as a thank you for all of that support, I wanted to give you guys an opportunity to get your voices featured on the channel in some way. So I asked all of you a few days ago to submit some questions for me to answer, and now I'm going to do just that and spend some time going through and answering all of them. So without further ado, let's get started. All right, first question, do you think we will be seeing locations other than the West Coast in future Apes films? If so, how would you like to see it done? This is something that gets brought up a lot, and honestly, I am not sure. So far, they have stuck pretty closely to just staying in the California, San Francisco area on the West Coast. There's definitely been mentions here and there to other parts of the world, but so far we haven't seen it. Do I think we will? Probably. Do I think it will be maybe in the next movie? I'm not sure, but I do think we will see other locations, whether it be other parts of the United States or other countries. I'm not sure, but I do think it's a safe bet that at some point, whether it's in the next movie or the movie after that, or even the trilogy that comes after Noah's trilogy, I do think we will see a different location. It's just a matter of when and what the context is. Next question. Here's a question that hasn't been asked yet. What got you into the Planet of the Apes franchise? So I've actually talked about this, I think, a few times now, but in case you don't know, and I actually did a whole video talking about this, so if you want a more detailed answer, you can go check that video out right on my channel. It's one of the earlier videos. I think it's called My Introduction to Planet of the Apes or something like that. But in short, I got into Planet of the Apes mainly because of my dad. When I was a kid, the original Planet of the Apes series, the original 5 movies, were playing on Turner Classic Movies. They were showing them nonstop. And so I started watching them because I was at an age where I was trying to consume all the classic movies. So I recorded all of them and I started watching the first one, and my dad came down when I was in the middle of watching it, and he sat and watched it with me, and he talked about how he saw them when he was a kid and they were kind of his franchise, and then we watched all of them together. So it was a really cool experience to have. So from that point on, I became really obsessed with the franchise and started getting excited for Rise of the Planet of the Apes when that came out. So I really just started from being wanting to learn about classic movies and kind of stumbling into them, and my dad guiding me through those first few movies. So that is how I got into the Planet of the Apes franchise. Next question. Assuming the next trilogy jumps massively in time, how advanced do you think the Ape Society will get? I don't know if apes driving cars would work, but I think we should be at least a little more advanced than the 68 film due to having higher budgets, better CGI, etc. I get what you're saying in terms of having higher budgets and better CGI available, but I don't necessarily think that is the sole reason that they should change things up. I think they definitely will. I think how we see apes evolve and the speed at which apes evolve probably will be a little faster, but I still don't know if we're ever going to get to see apes full on having like a 21st century human-like society, but I do think we will see a bit more of an evolution rather than what we saw in the 1968 film. I think we'll definitely go past that. That being said, I don't know how far the next trilogy is going to jump. If I had to guess, it'll probably be like 1,000 years in the future, so still probably won't be like 3950 or anything like that, but I do think we will have a massive jump and we will see a full-on Planet of the Apes that is maybe a little further advanced than what we got in the 1968 film, but I don't think it's going to be so further advanced that it's like, you know, the ending scene of the 2001 movie where you have apes living the way that humans do with, you know, full-on cars and everything. So I don't think we'll get that far, but I think we will get farther than the 1968 film for sure. Next up, could Noah really be Caesar's descendant? I think he definitely could. If he is, we will find out about it in the next movie. It's not something that I necessarily want, but I'm totally cool with it if they do it right and they reveal it right and it makes sense and they do it in a way that's actually like meaningful and not just there to make Noah and Caesar related. I personally would prefer they just have him be Noah and not be related to anybody else, but I'd totally be open to it as long as it's done right. And I have a feeling that's probably the direction they're going to go, but I also could see them going the way that I want them to. So at this point, it's really a coin flip, and I don't really think we're going to have any real idea about this until at the very least by the end of the next movie, if not the third movie. So it's going to be a while before we find out about this, but yeah, I think it's definitely possible. Next question. Do you think Dawn deserves to be included in discussions about spectacular movie sequels alongside ones like Aliens, T2 Judgment Day, Lord of the Rings Two Towers, Empire Strikes Back, etc.? Planet of the Apes as a sci-fi franchise in general is so underrated and under-acknowledged in my opinion. Happy to be here for another milestone, Josh. Love to see the channel keep growing. Well, thank you very much. And yes, I absolutely think Dawn deserves to be in that conversation among all those sequels, all of which I think are fantastic movies, by the way. And yes, I think Dawn deserves to be in that conversation. I don't know if I would put Dawn quite on the level of something like Terminator 2 or The Empire Strikes Back. Those are like top 20 favorite movies of all time for me, but I do love Dawn. It's an incredible movie. It's one of the best sequels of all time. So I definitely think that it belongs to be in that conversation. Have you seen Story Street's video on Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, and what are your overall thoughts on it? So this is gonna sound bad, but it's not, I promise. So I actually started watching that video a while ago. I got like maybe 5 minutes into it and then I never finished it, but it wasn't because I disagreed with him and it wasn't because I thought it was a bad video. I straight up just had something come up and I completely forgot to go back to it. So I do want to get back to watching that video at some point. I just haven't gotten around to it, but I love Story Street's work. And from the first 5 minutes of what I did see, I didn't completely agree with what he was saying, but I respect his opinion. And again, his just video presentation is fantastic. So I didn't get around to finishing the video, but I do want to watch the rest of it when I get a chance. So when I get around to it, I might talk about it more, but no, I have not seen the full video. Next question, and this is a long one. Congratulations, thank you. When do you plan on reading the original Pierre Boulle novel? I would love to get your thoughts on it and do a book-movie comparison video. I also would recommend reading the 2018 novel Death of the Planet of the Apes by Andrew E.C. Goska, which takes place during the events of Beneath and tells what happened to Taylor throughout the events of the film and delves into his backstory through flashbacks and how he became involved with the Icarus project. Plus, you might get more Dr. Hassline, which I know you will love. Yes, I definitely would. I am so proud to have played a small part in helping you achieve your goal. Whenever I watch one of your videos, I always take notice of the hard work that you put into them, and I thank you for it and appreciate it very much. Also, thank you for the new Discord server and bringing us fans together and giving us a platform to share our love with the franchise with each other. Well, first, regarding the Discord, thank you for everyone who continuously suggested that I do it. At first, I was kind of hesitant, but I think so far, for the most part, aside from a few hiccups, it's gone really well. I'm enjoying seeing all of your conversations in there again. I'm not in there that often, I just don't have the time, but when I do pop in there, I like to, answer whatever questions I can and comment on whatever conversation I can. So I think it's really cool that you guys are, keeping this train going, even though I'm not always there. So really glad that you guys are liking the Discord so far. As for the original Pierre Boulle novel, the honest question is I have no idea. Really, I just don't know when I'm going to get around to reading it. I'll fully admit this now. I'm a very slow reader. I do not read books the way I used to. When I was younger, I read books on an almost weekly basis, but today you're lucky if you can get me to read one book a year. So it's very hard for me to get into reading a book. Really just starting one is a struggle for me, but I'm working on it. I'm going to order it. I'm going to read it at some point. I'm hoping to do it in the next few months, but there's a couple other books I do want to read as well. So I don't know if that's going to be the first one I do. It most likely will, just because it's the OG. It's the reason we're all here, but I do want to check it out. I do want to review it, and I will be doing that at some point in the not too distant future. Next question. Considering that Wes Ball talked about Kingdom taking influence from Apocalypto, what other movies do you think would be cool to pull from the sequel or other future Planet of the Apes movies? That is a very good question. Off the top of my head, I have two ideas. The first would be like maybe something inspired by like Seven Samurai, a rogue team kind of movie, one of those types of things, kind of like what you have with like Thunderbolts coming out with Marvel this year. Something like that I think could be cool. That'd be different. It'd be probably a little more action heavy. I would be into it. And the other one, and this has kind of already been done already with War for the Planet of the Apes, at least in terms of just general scale, but taking inspiration from those really grand scale epics like Ben-Hur or the Ten Commandments or Lawrence of Arabia, or even like the Avatar films or the Lord of the Rings trilogy, like making something really massive and detailed and fleshed out. I doubt that would ever happen just because these movies aren't big enough to warrant those types of budgets and those types of run times, but I personally would love it. So yeah, if you were asking me, those are the types of influences that I'd like to see in future Planet of the Apes movies. Next question. Do you think we'll eventually get another female ape main protagonist like Zira? Yeah, I think we will. Actually, I wouldn't be shocked if Suna becomes much more of a central figure in the next film, standing alongside Noah. But yeah, I do think we will get another female ape protagonist. Maybe in the third trilogy could actually be, a full-on female protagonist front and center. But yeah, I think you should expect Suna to get more time in the spotlight in the next movie. But even if not, I do think it will happen eventually. Next up, do you buy the complaint that CGI has gotten worse over the years, especially what happened with The Flash, or do you think it's just bad management and rushing the effects artist, or that they ran out of money as well? I know I state this a lot, but I need to say it again. I'm not a visual effects expert. I'm not in the industry. I don't know how some of this stuff works. I can only tell you what I have seen, what I've read, knowing what I do know from my little experience I do have. But no, to answer your question, no, it has not gotten worse over the years. I think when people say it's gotten worse over the years, it really just comes from, and this is not calling anyone dumb or anything, it's just people just straight up just don't know what they're talking about because they're just saying what they see on the screen. They see CGI that's worse, but there's a reason that it's worse. It's not because the quality of the CGI has gotten worse. It's not like, the technology has degraded. It's actually gotten far better. We're now at a place where CGI is capable of doing things that practical just never will be able to, and doing it better than things that practical can do in certain ways. There's pretty much just no limit to what CGI is capable of nowadays when you have the right team in place and when you have the right management in place. But that's really what it comes down to. And so when you say, is it just bad management and rushing the effects artist? Yes, that is what it really comes down to. It's not managing your budgets correctly. It's not managing your visual effects schedule correctly. It's trying to be making changes on the fly when you have 2 months until the release and going into something without having any idea what it's going to look like and going, yeah, we'll just figure this out in post. That's not how you make a great CGI effect. The way you do it is by planning out in advance. You design, you sketch, you map out your plans before even a second of film has been shot. And so the reason that movies like The Flash or the last Indiana Jones movie or things like that have CGI in it that just doesn't look good is because the studio decided 6 months into post-production with only a few months left to go that they want to shoot a whole new sequence or remove something and then replace it with a new thing. And suddenly these visual effects artists have to do 10 months of work in 3 months. And not to mention they're getting overworked and stressed and exhausted. And so it really just comes down to bad management. That starts at the top. So until that gets fixed throughout the entire industry, you're going to continue to see stuff like this happen. But fortunately, that has not had an effect on the Planet of the Apes franchise, which consistently puts out phenomenal visual effects heavy films that look incredibly realistic, look beautiful from start to finish, and do not have these issues. So we're very lucky that this franchise has avoided this issue for the last decade plus. Next question. In Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, Rocca briefly talks about gibbons. Do you think that the ALZ-113 also made gibbons more intelligent? And how would you feel about gibbons being added in future films? They probably were made more intelligent. How much more intelligent? I don't know if it's the same level as chimps and gorillas and orangutans, but I can't imagine it's too far off. And I'd be totally cool to seeing them. I've actually thought about making a video talking about this very subject, so I don't know if I will. But yeah, I think we will see them at some point, and I'm totally for seeing them. I think it would be a nice change of pace and really cool. It's really just a matter of making sure it doesn't come off as too silly because they're so much smaller than other apes. It could come off as them just being these little comical creatures that stand along all the other apes. So you have to find a way to make sure it works and that it's grounded and that they actually feel like real characters. So if they can do that, yeah, I'm all for it, and I think we'll see it happen. Next up, congrats on getting 15,000 subs. Thank you. Do you plan on getting more Planet of the Apes filmmakers on the channel in the future? I can say that there are 3 people in particular that I've already tried and will potentially try to get in the future that I have not had any success yet with, but there are 3 people that I am trying to get on the channel at some point. I don't know if I will ever be able to, but the other 2 that I really want, and this will most likely never happen, but my 2 dream guests are Matt Reeves and Andy Serkis. If I can get those 2 on this channel, my life will be complete and I can die happy because those 2 are heroes to me. And if they can come on this channel, then really just the sky's the limit at that point, I feel. But yeah, I'd love to do it. I'm actually working on something that might happen with someone in a few months from now. I might have an announcement sometime in the spring. I don't know yet, but I would love to make it happen. Next question. What do you think makes a film worse? A bad script or a bad director and direction for a movie? I mean, it depends on the movie, really. People always say that you can't have a good movie without a good script. You can have a bad movie with a good script. I don't necessarily agree. A bad script is a bad script, but a bad script can be improv'd on set. Things can be changed on set. You can take a bad script and turn it into something at least a little more entertaining than you would get on the page if you have a really great director and you have a really great cast. That being said, you can also have a great script and the director just isn't able to execute it well and it doesn't work. So it really depends on the movie. It's not an either or situation. It's not like, a statistical thing or a factual thing. It just depends on the movie. There's no real formula to it. Next question. What is your favorite primate and why? This is a basic answer, but it's a chimpanzee. Chimpanzees are just my favorite animal in general, outside of dogs. I love chimpanzees. I think they're just incredible, intelligent, fascinating creatures. They're also very dangerous, but I think they're really majestic and captivating animals. And so it sounds weird, but and it just feeds into why these Planet of the the Apes movies work, but they're the most human animals I think there are. They're kind of the closest to us, and that's just always fascinated me, just having these animals that are so reflective of human traits in a way. So that's why I think chimpanzees are my favorite primate. Next question, what do you think about a Planet of the Apes zombie crossover movie? I love certain zombie movies, Zombieland, Dawn of the Dead, 28 Days Later is my personal favorite. You have some really fantastic zombie movies out there. That being said, I would never in a million years want to see this. It would feel too gimmicky to me. I mean, maybe if there was, in the future, the ALZ virus returned and mutated into some sort of zombie thing and the apes and the humans had to work together to take on that or something, I don't know. But in general, no, I don't really have any interest in seeing zombies in the Planet of the Apes. Next question, how would you feel about a Mark Nabaldine and Brian Taylor for Planet of the Apes film, known for their dark, edgy, bizarre, and over-the-top, would make a fun and crazy fun film? I'm going to be totally honest. I have no idea who these guys are. I'm just looking up their filmography right now. We're just looking at the movies they've made. Personally speaking, they don't really speak to me. The only one of them that I've actually seen is the first Crank movie, which just really isn't my kind of thing. So that's not really something I would want to see brought into Planet of the Apes. But if that's something you'd be up for, then, that's awesome. Next question. What do you think is the best kind of fiction? Science fiction, pulp fiction, fantasy, science fantasy, dark fantasy, etc. That is a really good question, and honestly I've never really thought too much about it, but I guess science fiction, maybe science fantasy, but really science fiction, just because when I think of those types of genres and that kind of thing, I tend to lean towards things like Dune and Interstellar and 2001 and films of that nature. So those are just off the top of my head, and really that kind of falls into that more just straight up science fiction world building kind of stuff. So yeah, I would say probably science fiction. Next up, do you think one day apes will go in space? I think it would be very cool, but I don't think it will ever happen. Maybe. I have made a video on this before, so I'm not 100% sure if it will happen, but if I had to guess, maybe way in the future, in like movie number 8 or 9, if that. But even then, it might be a little too far out there for modern audiences to get on board with. So I don't know. I really don't know. Would I be into it? As long as it's done well and makes sense in the context, yeah, I'm all for it. Next question. Do you plan on making videos about anything other than the movies, perhaps the books or comics? Yes, I do plan on making videos about books and comics at some point. I'm hoping to make a video about the comics sometime in March, if not April. I have an idea of what I want to do with it. For the most part, I have not read almost any of the comics, but I have an idea of a video I want to make talking about the comic in a way from which I'm actually able to, as someone who hasn't read them, or at least will have only read a few of them by that point. So I'm planning on doing that. As for the books, I don't know when I'm going to get to them. Like I said earlier, I don't read that often, and it's hard for me to read sometimes, but I do want to get to them. There are videos that I want to make. It's just a matter of when. Next question. Josh, if you could pick one favorite scene from Rise, Dawn, War, and Kingdom, what would they be and why? Take care. I mean, honestly, it's really just the answer from my top 10 favorite moments video that I put out a few weeks ago, but it's the scene in Rise of the Planet of the Apes when Caesar says no. That is, to me, just one of the all-time great cinematic moments. It's iconic, it's powerful, it's so memorable. I watched it a million times. It's my favorite moment in the entire trilogy. It's my favorite moment in the entire 4 movies we've gotten. It's my favorite moment in the entire Planet of the Apes universe that's ever happened, either the originals or the new ones. So I love that scene. It's incredible. Andy Serkis's performance, the timing of it works so well. It's such a cinematic staple in modern film, and so I love it. It's a phenomenal scene. Next up, could the proportions and postures of the CGI apes slowly transition to be more human-like, similar to the proportions of Cornelius and Zira in the original film, to further blur the lines between human and ape, human and other? After all, since the beginning of the reboot films, Caesar's face has become more human-like as the films progressed. And I see you have a second question, so I'll answer this first one first. Yes, I actually do think we're going to see something like that happen. We already kind of started seeing it happen in Kingdom. When you look at the way that Raka moves and the way his body functions, it's much more upright, it's much more human-like, and the same with his face. And a lot of the apes' faces, they're a lot more human-like and much more expressive like humans. So I think we're already seeing that. It's just a matter of when is it going to come full circle to where we were in the original Planet of the Apes, which I don't know if we'll ever fully get there, but I think we're definitely already on the way there. So the next question is, would Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes have been just as thematically effective if the human in the film had been a human male instead of a human female? Would having a human male in Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes have made the film similar to the first Planet of the Apes film? Does May being a human female bring a new perspective and dynamic between apes and humans, or would the dynamic between Noah and a human have been similar if May had been a human male instead of a human female? That's a very good question. Honestly, it's a question I have had a few people bring up here and there. Actually, a few people in the Discord brought it up, I think, a few days ago. But I think that's a really interesting way to look at it. I don't know how different it would have been, but I think it definitely would have changed it. I think you would have maybe seen a bit more of a front put up by Noah at first. I think you would have been a bit less trusting. He was a bit more easily trusting of her as the movie went on, whereas I think had it been a male, it would have been maybe not so much Raka, but I think Noah would have been a bit more resistant to trusting the human. If I had to guess, that's probably how it would have gone. And finally, we have arrived at the last question. Do you think the recent Weta effects in Better Man could make an impact on the design and evolution of the apes in Planet of the Apes? Congrats on all your hard work. Well, thank you very much. And honestly, I don't think it's going to have any impact whatsoever. I don't think it's going to change it in any way. I mean, I'll say this, I haven't seen Better Man. I've heard it's a great movie. To be honest, I just haven't had no interest in watching it, but I will probably check it out eventually because I love the director. I really like The Greatest Showman, so I feel like I'll probably like this as well. But just judging off of what I've seen, the design for the ape in Better Man really just looks like Caesar, but on a human body. So I don't think it's gonna be that impactful. And also just because of how poorly that movie did at the box office, I think it's gonna end up going down as like one of the biggest box office flops ever. So I don't really think it's gonna have any impact whatsoever on the design. I think the apes designs in Planet of the Apes are gonna continue just to evolve however they want to, regardless of any sort of outside forces. But that was the final question submitted from you guys in the Ape Nation community. Again, I want to thank all of you for helping me get to this point. I could not appreciate you guys enough for all the love and support you continue to show me. It really means a lot, and I will most likely do one of these again when I hit 20,000 subscribers, or maybe I'll hold off until 25,000. I'm not 100% sure yet, but in the meantime, here's to the next milestone, and here's to all of you for being such an amazing community. Thank you so much for checking out today's video here on Ape Nation. If you liked this video, be sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so that you can stay up to date on all things apes. I'll catch you in the next one, so until then, goodbye.